For the first time yesterday, someone was available to comment on why Matt Canada was kept. And that someone was at the very, very top of the structure. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll check out. Art Rooney does a session every January where he brings in one individual from each Pittsburgh media outlet and invites them to ask any and all questions that might be on their minds. And it didn't take long for Canada to surface.
Yeah, I think so. I think we like to see the improvement. And, you know, with a rookie quarterback, they seem to work well together. You know, they build a good working relationship. And so, you know, to kind of sort of start over again with a new offensive coordinator, you know, you could wind up back in the same situation again where, you know, the first half of the season, you're breaking in a new coordinator. So, you know, we just felt like there's enough there to build on that, you know, we wanted to continue to keep that group together.
Okay, not much of a shock there. Obviously, he wasn't about to go off the rails and say what a terrible coordinator he was and he's going to have one more chance with us, but we're going to make sure he's on a short leash. That is not the Rooney way. Besides, as I've been kind of hinting at for a while now, Rooney almost certainly gave Mike Tomlin sole discretion as to whether to keep his coordinator. And I'm judging this, for anybody who's new to this topic, principally on Tomlin having used the term "my decision" in his own postseason news conference a couple of weeks ago. My decision. Well, obviously it's really Rooney's decision, but unless Rooney tells you it's your decision and he's staying out of it. So from there, Rooney does his meeting. Rooney knows the Canada question is coming up, and Rooney, you know, I don't want to say that he echoed what Tomlin said because Tomlin had very, very little to offer. Remember, this was before the team officially confirmed that Canada was coming back. All Tomlin had to say was he got better. And then from there, we all got better, blah, blah, blah. That's pretty much what you just heard from Rooney. He liked the fact that Kenny Pickett got better. He liked the fact a lot, judging by his words, that the running game got better. And he liked the fact that the team went 7-2 down the stretch. There wasn't much mention of the team having played a far lesser schedule. And, you know, I'm kind of okay with that, too. You know, you still have to win in the NFL, and you still have to beat whoever you're facing that day. And as this league, more than any other, has shown in North America, that's not predictable. That's not something where you can chalk one up in advance. Steelers still had to go and get those things done, and they did. What can you expect at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh? Respect, rigor, relevance. That's the Point Park Pledge. You'll be treated with respect while being challenged and supported academically to graduate with career-ready, relevant skills. Visit pointpark.edu to learn more. And really, beyond that, the Rooney session didn't have much in the way of headlines. Not that that was some great headline either. But I couldn't help but take notice of this when Rooney was asked pointedly what's his, and in turn the team's, top priority heading into the 2023 season.
Score more points. I think that you know, we talked about the areas of improvement, and I think there are some good ones, but, you know, we didn't score enough points is the bottom line, and in particular, you know, not great red zone efficiency. So I think, you know, those are a couple things that I would identify that we clearly have to get better at.
Okay, well, so he wants to score more points, but they're keeping the coordinator who couldn't score more points. The Steelers ranked 24th in the league in red zone efficiency. That means how often you get down there and produce a touchdown, meaning inside the 20, at 51.9%. What was odd about that figure, meaning it being that low, was that once the Steelers got inside the 5, and you'll recall this without any sort of data or research, they were pretty much automatic. They had multiple different ways, and it was the one time, at least for me, that I felt like, hey, this Canada, he's got some moves, There was some clever stuff we saw down near the goal line. Sometimes maybe excessively clever, sometimes more clever even than intended, such as the one time that George Pickens took what wound up looking like an inside handoff, but actually was supposed to be a sprint to the far side of the field, just because he saw that it was open and went, I'm just going to score if you guys don't mind. And there was Derek Watt producing touchdowns. There was all kinds of little trickery, but they found a way from inside the 5. Where they were not good was between the 20 and the 5. And actually, you could probably go a little bit back further than that, probably from the 40 to the 5. And that's because of all the usual discussion points that we have related to Canada. No intermediate passing, nothing over the middle, don't utilize the tight end, only have George Pickens running one kind of route. And of course, not to be mean here, but the bigger the situation becomes, the smaller Deontay Johnson becomes, judging by his, count them with me, 0 touchdowns in the 2022 NFL season. Don't misunderstand me, please. As I was saying on just yesterday's episode, I have hope for this offense. I have enough hope that I don't believe that significant additions are needed or even necessarily wanted. Got your quarterback, got your running back, you got some receivers. You're going to have Calvin Austin back, so maybe even those jet sweeps will look like a good thing. You've got something of an offensive line. You've got the tight end, and you've now maybe got a different type of backup tight end or number 2 in Connor Hayward, presuming he ends up being the number 2. But he's way more of a playmaker than Zach Gentry. And, you also took Gentry out of Canada's arsenal, which is a good thing. But to what Rooney said, and boy, are people in my line of work, myself included, constantly guilty of taking that January session with Rooney and poring over every syllable because you don't get that many chances to hear from him. I can't help but underscore myself the fact that Rooney was asked an open-ended question about his greatest area of concern, and he responded with that, with score more points. Sounds to me like the pressure is already pretty high on Canada and not just from the outside. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by the personal injury law firm of Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly, and George, LGKG. They represent people who are hurt in car accidents, who need help with workers' comp, who filed for medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at LGKG have been keeping promises in our region for over 80 years. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. Today's J1Q comes from Zach, who says, DK, I'm confused about the cap space. You say the Steelers have tons of room, but I can find information that says the Steelers have like $2 million, and that's not a lot. No, Zach, it's not a lot. And if you cite the exact dollar amount that's available on the websites that track this sort of thing, notably Spot Track, that's the one that I follow most closely and trust across all sports. They just have a really consistent approach for doing this sort of thing. The number is 1.76 million, so it's even a hair less than that. But that's never been the basis for my saying that the Steelers have a ton of cap space. If you've never heard of William Jackson III, well, you're about to. He's a corner, and he's a good one. And the Steelers employ him. He's injured, and he was injured the entire time. He will get cut. And when he is cut, he will result in an immediate $12.75 million savings. That's pretty nice. Hey, thanks for coming, Will. Don't leave that engine running out in the lot, you know. There's more, too. Mitch Trubisky, we've talked about on this show. He has a $10 million cap hit. If he's cut, he is an instant $8 million savings. Where are we now? That's another 21 on top of the 2 you had, so we're already at 23. Miles Jack is an interesting case. Jack is a good player, a tough player, and by that I don't just mean with what he does on the football field. I'm telling you, he played through some issues in the second half. He and I talked a lot, and he had between the groin issue, a foot issue, and then a recurrence of the groin issue that resulted in a grade 3 tear, just kept playing, and obviously wasn't going to be as dynamic as you'd want, but he still made the tackles. He still put his face into the fan, to use the Tomlinism, certainly a lot more than Devin Bush, his partner at the position, was doing. But if you cut Jack, if you just send him out, that's an $8 million savings. Now, he's one of those guys you can go to and say, hey, do you want to restructure? Do you want to work out a lower deal so we don't cut you and you don't have to go through all the free agency fuss? You can get something like that done. That's kind of what I'm hoping for from the Steelers, but it's still going to be a cap savings, whether it's 4, 6, the full 8, who knows? They might have other ideas completely at inside linebacker. But for the sake of this exercise, let's just go ahead and cut him. And now we're up to $30 million in cap space. Ahkello Witherspoon would be a $4 million savings. Did you like Witherspoon enough to say that he's a $4 million corner? How about Levi Wallace? Also a $4 million corner. Did you value Wallace as a $4 million corner? Did you value both Witherspoon and Wallace as $4 million each at corner? I'm going to guess not. Montravius Adams was a $2.5 million player. If he's cut, that's your savings. Do you really need him back? He was kind of an emergency guy after the massacre in Minneapolis, but he didn't really even get on the field all that much. Miles Killebrew is a $2 million special teams guy, meaning that's the savings. Gunnar Olszewski, $2 million if he's cut. Now, every one of these players, you should know that I just mentioned, if they're cut, would have to be replaced. You know, it's a 53-man roster. You don't want to go into games shorthanded. So it's not like the replacements would be free. But if you add up all of these figures, you're going to end up somewhere in the range of, oh, wait, I did the addition, $43.25 million. Hence the statements I've been making all week about how the Steelers are headed toward a ton of cap space, because that is a ton of cap space. And all of that cap space would be in place before any of the standard restructurings that you have with your highest paid guys. And you know what I mean by that. TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, the guys that just made all the big bank. You can talk to Cam Hayward about such a thing. And your GM, your new GM, is a lifelong cap guy. They're going to have money. What they're not going to want is for people like me to talk about how they're going to have money, because that sends a lousy signal to the agents and everyone else involved who's going to come to them, like Arthur Maulet's going to, from what I've heard, and say, hey, I was actually underpaid this season. Can I get more for next year? Yeah, I'm sorry, Art, man. We just don't have it. You know, we don't have it. We don't have any cap space. Look right here. It says $1.76 million. Oh, okay. Well, then forget it. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. We will do another one of these after the weekend's championship games Monday morning.